Hello, everyone. I am meteorologist Hutch Johnson. Thank you for joining me for this update. Now, we do have some fairly quiet weather over a large portion of the northern plains and west coast as we're enjoying a nice warm up in the northern plains. Lake effect snow machine continues to rip out some snow totals. We'll go over that. Showers making their way through Texas, some of them strong. Couple of lightning strikes not too far south of New Mexico, and our next weather making system pushing into the Pacific Northwest. Now, we'll have several waves of storms rolling out of the Rockies and into the East Coast, and that's going to make for an unsettled 7 to 14 day period. And we could have our season's first nor'easter being advertised by a couple of models with some significant impacts from the mid-Atlantic and north. We'll look at all of it coming up now on Hutch's Weather, and we'll get started with what's going on in everybody's eyes of attention right now, and that is what is going on with the lake effect snow. Here we do have some heavier snow bands working their way off of upstate New York here. Once again, Syracuse north towards Buffalo getting hit quite hard with this wind direction, fetching some additional moisture and energy off the Great Lakes there and heading off into upstate New York. The Erie, Pennsylvania, western PA, and as well as extreme western New York seeing some also lake effect snow. That does continue as well in parts of Canada as well in Ontario. Now, as we look out elsewhere across the great nation, let's take a quick look at some snowfall totals here first for this particular event going on. And to do that, we'll zoom in on the area right now. So give me one moment while I go ahead and get the interactivity out on the map here. We'll go to the East Coast where you see the yellow dots here are areas where we have some higher snowfall amounts. And the legend tells us they're at least 6 inches once we get into the yellows to oranges, a foot of snow. So here we go. Buffalo just off to the east of you near the Pembroke area. We got a foot plus almost 13 inches of snow, and that's confirmed by a 9-inch report out there in Attica, as well as we look at that 10-inch report there in Holland. Now, as we go down into the Erie, Pennsylvania area, a solid 9 to 11 inches of snow reported there. Union City, Pennsylvania getting hit pretty well with upwards of a foot. Here we got 11 inches in Marionville, Pennsylvania. So again, Erie, Pennsylvania, upstate New York getting hit pretty hard. Now, when we go off a little bit farther, we see some significant snowfall amounts here north of Springfield, where we do have upwards of a foot of snow reported in Cheshire, up here in the Massachusetts area, as well as Savoy up there at this particular time. So that's a look at some snowfall from this particular system as it's working its way through. Look at the western part of the mitten of Michigan here off the shores of Lake Michigan. 10.5 inches in Brunswick in the last 24 hours, 11.7 inches reported in Pine Grove out there, not far from Kalamazoo. Everybody's fun one to say there. 10 inches in Edwardsburg, and that's a look at that. So now, as we take a look at the snowfall totals elsewhere, very quiet, uncharacteristically so in the Rocky Mountain West, but it will not stay that way for long as we are expecting some significant weather-making systems. And to take a look at the very latest on that, we're going to look at the European forecast model, and then what we'll do is take a look at the track and timing of a couple of these systems that work their way through. Number one, right now we have the lake effect snow working its way through the northeastern United States with another system fixing to make its landfall in the Pacific Northwest. Let's walk through it, shall we? We'll talk a little bit about the upcoming weekend. First and foremost, a little Alberta clipper will make northern Minnesota, northern parts near the UP of Michigan, northern Wisconsin feel the effects of a brief stint of wintry weather. As this system moves eastward, though, it will pick up some energy. Snow bands get a little bit heavier as they move into Ontario and upstate New York. So here you go again. And again, a northwest wind, not necessarily a cold one, though. So the amount of fetch of moisture off those Great Lakes, not quite as significant as the past couple of systems making their way through. That's still quiet over most of the rest of the nation, with the exception of the Cascades, as well as the western Rockies of Montana and northern Idaho. That system will skirt its way across Alberta, Saskatchewan as well, and then it's going to be another clipper-like system that on Sunday will bring mixed precipitation. Hey, it's not November rain, folks. This is December rain in North Dakota. What? Yep, that's right. And a mix and a band of moderate to heavy snow. Sunday night into Monday, some travel concerns as this system winds its wheels here. But do not make a mistake to overlook what's going on right here. As we start our work week on Monday morning, we'll have a system working its way through with some rain, and that'll bring snow to the mid-Atlantic states and the northeastern United States as well. See this little low pressure system here? Track it, watch it. Boom, it makes its way up the Atlantic seaboard. When it skirts the coast like this, the European model says by the middle of next week, we could be dealing with an increasingly intense storm system that works its way up the Atlantic seaboard. These are known as nor'easters. And this nor'easter here, the time frame being on Wednesday evening, bringing a mix of snow, sleet, and rain to places like Boston. You'll be on the warm side, Long Island, New York on the very wet side, so that means water for you. But it's going to turn increasingly white as we get into western PA and western parts of New York and all the way up into the Appalachians, where this storm system really intensifies with the wind on the backside. And that means cold air, and that means lake effect again as we head toward the latter part of next week. Meanwhile, the rest of the nation, cold in the northern plains, and another system making landfall in the Pacific Northwest. That will culminate in another Colorado low working its way out and up into the Great Lakes region. Way too early to get specific about this. This could all but vanish as we go through the next several days. But we'll keep in mind the fact that we're going to have wave after wave after wave of storms. Check this out. I'm rewinding it here, and you can just watch these storms rolling out of Canada, a few of them developing on the lee side of the Rocky Mountains and the Central Plains, impacting mainly the eastern half of the United States. Meanwhile, the Pacific Northwest is quiet until we get into the second half of the month of December. And that's a look at that. Now let's take a little bit of a look with this same model and take a look at the snowfall potential with these systems. Let's go ahead and look at those. Here we go. It's switching over right now. Pardon me while I get this loaded up. Okay, now what you're looking at is the snowfall between now on Friday and into Saturday. Notice that all the way from Hudson Bay here through the northern Great Lakes region with a southerly wind, that fetch is going to punch those lake effect snow into the Canada side of the Great Lakes. Still some significant snow that's wrapping up now off parts of upstate New York and Erie, PA. This system works its way through. That pink color there means a lot of shovel trouble. That means you're going to be out there scooping more than you want to. The rest of the nation, as far as that goes, pretty quiet with snowfall and some much needed snow in parts of, well, northern Idaho. Then as we carry this out just a little further, we start to get some white weather out here. There was something called Almanac somewhere that was saying it's going to be not a white Christmas up here in the northern plains. I don't know about that. I'm feeling pretty confident that at the very least, the northern one half of Minnesota will have a great chance at seeing some snowy weather with this active pattern rolling out of the southern prairies of Canada. Hey, Rocky Mountain snow taking place as we go into Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th. Oh no, lucky for those resorts there. And this system just keeps delivering its delivery weather right into the middle of the month. So now as we get into the middle of the month, there comes that nor'easter making its way along the Atlantic seaboard as well. So who knows how much snow we could be talking about, but let's just put it this way. If you live north of, say, the parallel going from, say, upstate portions and northern portions of California through Colorado and north of Virginia, it looks like there's a fair chance to partly cloudy chance of seeing some flakes fly. Okay, so that is a look at that. Now let's take a look at what's going on with the wet part of the weather. Here's a look at precipitation chances for other parts of the country that don't have to battle the flakes that frolic across the valley and the region. Let's go ahead and take a look at snowfall and now moisture. So you're looking at, even in places that get snowfall, this doesn't nix that moisture out. It adds it all as melted or liquid equivalent moisture. So that's what we're looking at here. Wet weather as we go into Monday, early in the week, we saw that system working its way out of the Gulf Coast states and delivering rain to the northern Gulf Coast as well as the southeastern United States, from Georgia, South Carolina, right down into parts of eastern Louisiana. And then there's a lot of moisture with that system working on the Atlantic seaboard. So look at all the moisture as well in the Pacific Northwest, some of which will fall as snow and the elevated terrain. So to look, I think, at the chances of snow, I like to go out no more than about 4 days, 5 days at the very most to see as far as the amounts of snow go for this particular system. So we'll go out there and we'll take a look at the Northeast and Northwest United States and their chances of how much snow you may see as we go through. So let's go through and pick a time frame that's about into the middle of next week. Here we go. And now let's pick a spot and let's go to the New England states first, and then we'll get to the Pacific Northwest. So here we go, and Shazam, and let's see, there we go. Okay, so this is around New York State. as we go through and into the weekend. Here's the weekend: Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then into the first half of next week. We'll stop it at Wednesday. We're going to see the typical places in upstate New York, Erie, PA, picking up several inches of snow, over 3 inches in PA. And of course, if you in Lake Erie here, and if you get into Erie, Pennsylvania, you're going to have some of those enhanced bands along the places that typically get those lake effect snow bands setting up. Same thing goes for upstate New York, but the amounts are more ridiculous up there, where you see the center of the pink colors there. That's over a foot in a few places. Will be possible. I call this model guidance for a reason. It's just guidance. Now let's take a look at that Pacific Northwest. We're going to look at this same time period. I don't like to go out too much farther than that because it's easy for these models to really overblow things. So as we go into the middle of next week, the snow bands that will work its way in, pretty quiet. Only the most elevated of terrain will see it in the Cascades of Washington around Olympia and points out into northern Idaho. We'll see upwards of 6 inches or more of snow. Western Montana, the area in and around West Yellowstone, seeing some snowfall into Yellowstone National Park there in northwestern parts of Wyoming in toward the Tetons as well. And that is a look at the snowfall potential there. And if we do want to take a look at everybody's ski locations in Colorado, let's take a look at the snowfall potential as we go into the Central Plains. And here's southern Colorado by the time we get in the middle half of next week. And the southern part of the state, from Colorado Springs down towards Pueblo, the chances of snowfall that could be significant increases there. I'm meteorologist Hutch Johnson. I sure appreciate you checking out the channel here. If you like what you've seen, please hit the subscribe button. I'd love to see you hit the like button as well. It really helps me out. And if you have any questions at all, drop a comment. Let me know where you're watching from. Do you have holiday travel plans? It does look like some unsettled weather. No surprise, really. Unsettled weather will continue right into the second half of the month of December. I'll keep you posted right here. You're watching Hutch's Weather. You can check out my website, hutchesweather.com, anytime. Until next time, stay safe. Have a wonderful weekend and get ready for several waves of snow in the northern Great Lakes, as well as the New England states, as well as the Pacific Northwest in the upcoming 5 days.